Alrighty, so right now we're sitting down to do another sort of one-shot review type video, but this is going to be the first one that I'm doing based on a TV show. The reason why I decided to kind of branch out into TV shows is because it's, follows a similar mindset of reviewing the movies, like just watching it and trying to get my reaction to it as I go along and trying to see how I felt about it, looking back. But the format's going to be a little bit different. I don't know if I'm going to say it's a part of the same one-shot review sort of thing, but it'll look very similar. And then this will be the first one of that. So my goal is for any show that's like 22 to 25 minute, like your typical half-hour block, I'll probably try to have a video for every 4 episodes, just because in my head that seems like a good number. And for DVD sets, like for example, I'm just gonna grab a random one, like any of these anime DVD sets or random TV show DVD sets. Normally, one disc holds around 4 to 8 episodes, so just feels like a good way to chunk it out as I dive into some of these other shows. But the first show that we're here to do today is Yu Yu Hakusho, and I am watching this show in the subbed version. I've actually seen a good number of these episodes in the dub when I was in college, so I never made it up to what people call the Dark Tournament arc. I pretty much just made it towards the end of the Spirit Detective arc, where he goes on to fight that one dude in the forest. And even then, I might be wrong. There might be more episodes past that in the Spirit Detective arc, but that being said, I'm watching it again. I finally, kind of want to finish it. I think I'm just so enthralled by Hunter x Hunter that I just feel like I need to give Yu Yu Hakusho its proper watch, given that it's the same creator. And at the same time, also, I never, there's no reason why I stopped watching it in the past. Just pretty much became connected to other things and dropped it, and then re-watching it now, I just kind of want to watch it in the sub to get the full experience. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So this is going to be the first episode. It chronicles the first 4 episodes of Yu Yu Hakusho. And to start off, I just want to say, with any anime, one thing that's pretty important to whether or not, people might disagree with me, but the opening song and cinematic for any of these shows is kind of sets the tone for whether or not it's going to be hype, in my opinion. And I just have to say that both the Japanese and the English translated version of this song, that's like the first opening theme for this show, are both bangers. Especially the English one is actually so good. I have found myself watching it at random times just to get the vibes from it. It's just like really heartwarming in a way. But I'll leave you guys to watch the opening, figure out what you feel about the song and stuff like that. But I just think it's really good. And another thing about this that kind of draws me to want to watch the show again is just like the aesthetic of the show is awesome. They use a lot of bright pastel colors, and everybody's dripped out in sort of that 90s anime aesthetic. So I'm looking forward to sort of seeing that as well. But these first 4 episodes are pretty interesting because as we get into set up the story of Yu Yu Hakusho, essentially what happens in the first episode and what this is initially about is you have the school delinquent Yusuke Urameshi, who is your typical like Japanese anime delinquent figure. He goes around picking fights with all the other kids, but because he's our main character, he's righteous in some way. Like everybody's coming up to fight him, and he's the dude that is the strongest kid in town, and so that's why they're challenging him or whatever. And he always skips school, and the teachers are trying to get him in school, or there's other teachers that hate him. And he's got that one female character that he's nice to and is nice back to him, whose the name is Kiko. And then he also has like a nemesis who's Kuwabara-san, and I don't know, but his name's Kuwabara, and he basically is like his rival as far as being another delinquent, except for Yusuke always puts the beat down on him. And we kind of open up to Yusuke tries to go to school for the first time in like 10 days. And then the principal really wants him to stay at school, but this one teacher gets him in trouble off of something that's honestly not real. And so he's like, fine, well, if you want to kick me out of school for the day, I'll leave. And so he leaves, and on his way home, he sees a kid playing in the street, like a busy street, and he tells the kid not to, go run after his ball in the street because he could get run over by a car. And it kind of showcases that even though Yusuke is this like delinquent fighter sort of kid, he has a soft spot for certain people in his life in the way of Keiko, but then also he's super nice to this kid, and he cares about making sure that this kid doesn't get run over by a car. So that's supposed to sort of juxtapose those two realities, I guess, him being this delinquent, but him also having like genuine care for the people around him and stuff like that. So what ends up happening is this dumb kid literally, the second after he tells him this, kicks the ball in the middle of the street, and the kid goes to get the ball, and the kid looks like he's going to get run over by this dude driving a sports car, and Yusuke decides to lay his life on the line. He jumps out in front of the car, pushes the kid out of the way, saves the kid's life, but gets run over in the process. And what we then find out is that Yusuke basically just died, because the next scene we see him as almost like a spirit looking at his own body, not understanding why he is not in it anymore. And then we're meted by our first new character, which is Botan, the blue-haired girl who wears a pink robe and flies on an oar as her sort of like witch's broom. And she is actually this universe's incarnation of the Grim Reaper. So she's come to sort of lead Yusuke to wherever he's supposed to end up. But what's funny is that in the setup of this is that basically everybody on the spirit realm side is confused because they didn't expect somebody like Yusuke to jump out and try to save this kid. So nobody expected him to die this day. So they're not really ready to receive him, and they're honestly pretty surprised that he did that. And to add insult to injury, Botan informs Yusuke that he basically died in vain because this situation, had he not jumped out in front, was supposed to be one of those miracle stories where the kid gets ran over but he walks away without a scratch. And in fact, in this situation, because he pushed the kid out of the way, he has a couple scratches from the concrete. So, in a way, Yusuke actually made it worse by sacrificing himself. I guess that's just like a little goof. I thought that was pretty funny. But essentially, this spawns the idea that Yusuke goes, as a part of like the next couple episodes, he goes and he meets with, well, first of all, actually, don't let me skip this. We see an interesting thing where Yusuke kind of accepts his fate, and he's like, all right, then, I guess I just go where I need to go. Like, nobody's going to miss me anyway. It's not a big deal. But then later that episode, you see his initial sort of showing before his funeral. And while there are a lot of kids that are just kind of there to see him or whatever, the main people that we've already interacted with in the story that we don't think maybe would care that much, or we just don't know how they would react to this news, they react in such a way that you can tell that they actually do quite feel a great bit of loss for him, and that they wish that he was still alive. And that shows up in the way of like his mom, who's shown to be like a drunk, absent mother, partier type of person, is like bawling her eyes out and crying and really misses him. Same thing with his friend Keiko, who he thought is just this girl that he grew up with, who, I mean, I'm sure he realized that they're closer friends and stuff like that, but he puts on the facade that they just happen to be friends and stuff like that. And she's like crying, bawling her eyes out because she misses him, and she, is his friend. And then surprisingly, his enemy, his worst enemy, Kuwabara, you're shown him basically stomping his way into the showing with people trying to hold him back. And he's saying stuff like, how dare you, you bastard. You're not supposed to die. You can't die yet. I was supposed to fight you and beat you someday, right? And so then you find out, Yusuke actually is surprised by all these people that care about him. And that sort of sets up this whole idea that Yusuke may actually, because of the circumstances of his death, like he wasn't supposed to die yet, all these people really want him to be alive, so maybe he wasn't that much of a scumbag in his life and stuff like that, sort of creates this situation where King Yenma, or Koenma, I think it's Enma Jr. that we're seeing and not the actual like King Enma, but we'll see. Regardless, he basically says to Yusuke that, how about we give you a chance to come back to life? I'm going to give you this egg, and this golden egg is going to absorb all of the sort of energy that you give off. And if you give off good energy from your heart, then it will hatch into something nice. If you give off bad things, it'll hatch into something bad. And then, that will determine whether or not you can come back to life. So then the next episode is, his body's about to be cremated, but he needs it to not be cremated so he can come back to life. So all of a sudden it's a mad dash to figure out, how do we get the people in his life not to make sure that his body doesn't get cremated? And part of this is Yusuke trying to talk to people in their dreams, so he gets the chance to meet with Keiko in her dreams and kind of talk to her and explain to her that he'll be back. And when he goes to see her, she's like crying herself to sleep, thinking about how he's already dead and stuff like that. But this gives her like a new hope that he is going to come back, and she honestly believes that that's going to happen. And that's even further emboldened by when he figures out that, talking to her in the dreams wasn't enough, and his mom's pretty absent, so he can't really get a hold of her. That we find out that Kuwabara is actually spiritually sensitive, and so he already kind of can sense ghosts and otherworldly spirits. And so he becomes the perfect person for Yusuke to possess, to literally possess, to send this message to Keiko to basically tell her, like, you need to take care of my body so that I don't get cremated and that I can come back to life. And so we see that unfold, and it's a pretty funny episode because, first of all these people that he tries to go up to as Kuwabara have no idea that he's Yusuke, and they all get mad at him for it. But then eventually he's able to find Keiko and explain to her the situation, and she actually believes him based on certain things that he does to let her know that it's him, like his mannerisms and the way that he walks up to her and stuff like that, to put it nicely. But then afterward, he immediately, Kuwabara snaps out of it once Yusuke leaves, but they were able to successfully tell her to take care of the body. And so it's like, okay, that box is checked. We're good to go. And then the next episode, you see like Kuwabara is actually put, I guess it's an episode to let us know more about Kuwabara's character, but Yusuke is still sort of in this haunting format where he's following all the characters around, and we see this interesting episode that kind of builds out Kuwabara's strength as a man, just in the way that he gets in trouble for getting into a fight to save Keiko from these other school bullies, and these teachers really want them out of the school because they're all delinquents, him and his buddies. And so the way that they try to do this is this rat-faced teacher basically says, hey, that one friend you have that has an exemption that allows him to work outside of school and make money for his family to keep him afloat. Well, I'm going to revoke that because you guys keep fighting people. And so then they get put into the situation where they cannot fight people for 1 week. Otherwise, that friend loses his ability to have his job, and that would cause big problems for their family. And so Kuwabara takes it on himself as a man to basically not fight anybody. But on top of that, all these people are always coming up to him trying to fight him. And he essentially tells them, like, hey, I'm not going to hit you back at all, but I'm not going to run away from the fight. So you can beat the hell out of me as much as you want, but I'm not fighting back because I can't. And so you see him get the piss beat out of him for like half the episode. Then the teacher changes the rules and says, oh, now you have to get a good score on this test. And this is kind of where Yusuke comes in, where Kuwabara starts studying for this test that apparently he only got 7 points on the last time out of 100, and he needs to get 50. And so he starts studying day and night, and Yusuke actually comes into his dreams to help him study more. And he eventually passes the test, and everything works out. It was a cool episode. I liked it. I enjoyed it. And it helped kind of build out, like, Kuwabara, even though he is a little bit of a goofball, he's pretty based in his morality as far as, like, he stands up for his friends. He does what he can to ensure a good outcome for them, and he's like a stand-up guy. And you see that Yusuke respects him too, because Yusuke's like, out of everybody that would come up and try to fight me, Kuwabara is the only guy that had a real backbone. And yeah, it was a cool moment. And then the final episode of these 4 sort of leads up to, you know, this moment where Yusuke is going to actually figure out what's happening with his egg and get to come back to life. But unfortunately, there's a string of arsons around his area. And even though Keiko is coming in every day to take care of his body, there's now an investigator helping Botan, who's basically just coming to see, does anybody actually want Yusuke to come back to life? So they kind of tease him and make fun of him for his relationship with Keiko, and that's kind of funny to see. But then this fire breaks out in his house, and Kuwabara and Keiko are the 2 people that go and try to save them. And as a result of this, because Keiko puts herself in danger to go get the body and drag it out of the fire, Yusuke has to throw his spirit egg into the fire to basically save her from being killed by the fire. And she sees that there's this sort of divine intervention that opens the flames up and allows her to leave. And Kuwabara is able to come in and help her carry the body outside. But what we hear is that essentially, if Yusuke were to throw this egg into the fire and save her, that he would lose his chance to come back to life at all. And he doesn't hesitate a single second. Like, even when she first runs in to try to save him, he's not like, oh no, you need to be quick. He's really like, why are you doing that? I want you to stay alive. And he even says, what would be the point of coming back to life if she's not there? And that was kind of interesting, given kind of how he was talking about her earlier in the episode. But really what this episode goes to do is kind of put the final nail in the coffin that all these people really, really deep down in their heart want him to come back to life. And so, even though he supposedly sacrificed his chance to come back to life by throwing the egg into the fire, what it did, because he didn't even hesitate to do so, and all these people, he did it in service of saving these people, and these people want him to come back to life, Koenma decided that this is a showing that shows that he has a good heart, and maybe there are things that even they didn't expect of Yusuke that are still within him, and that he probably has the potential to be a good person, stuff like that. And so they're going to allow him to come back to life for now. But he also alludes to, you know, some sort of service that Yusuke has to do in exchange. And because I've seen more episodes, I already know that he's going to become the spirit detective that helps him track down bad spirits with this whole spirit gun thing and all that. But yeah, so those were the first 4 episodes. I think that twist on, I guess, the origin story is actually really fun. To see him basically in the first episode literally get killed, and then we're kind of hoping that he comes back to life for the rest of these beginning episodes. I think that was a really cool aspect, and I think the aesthetic of the show is really fun. And, you know, I'm just excited to see what happens with the rest of the show. I have a good idea of sort of some of the initial battles with random spirits and stuff like that. But yeah, you know, I would say definitely this far in, I'm only 4 episodes in, so I don't feel like I need to give any sort of review or something. But I would say that I'm enjoying Yu Yu Hakusho so far in sub, and I cannot wait to start getting to those episodes where I haven't seen yet, but it will take us a while here. But yeah, so that's the beginning of Yu Yu Hakusho. I think it's pretty interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you feel like it, like the video. If you like it, dislike it. If you dislike it, but if you do, you absolutely have to leave me a comment, because otherwise I don't know why you disliked it. And then subscribe if you want. But that's Yu Yu Hakusho, and I look forward to reviewing the next 4 episodes in the future. But that's it.